Well, welcome everybody to a new series that John Houston and I are starting called Startup. John is CEO of our JH family of companies, which is comprised of 6 different companies. And John, all of these companies you have helped start in some form or fashion. And so I would call you a true entrepreneur. But the purpose of this series is to help those out there who really feel called to start their own business. And we are just going to give them 7 tips for starting a healthy and thriving business. But John, before we go there, I know a lot of your followers, people who know you well, they know what John Houston Custom Homes is today. They know your top 100 builder and have been on that list for the last couple years. This year, we're set to close 630 homes in the year. But a lot of people don't know what John Houston Custom Homes, the startup, was. And so can you tell us just a little bit about that? How many homes did you close your very first year back in 2005?
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because, we're, I think this year, we're number 78th largest company in the home building company in the US, which is, honestly, we don't even look that stuff up. People send it to us. That's the only reason why I know it. But the first year, man, we did 6 houses. And so it's pretty crazy to think about what God has done and how much God has blessed us on this journey. But, I think that's the reason why I'm also excited about doing this series, because, man, when God's tugging on your heart, when God is leading you to be an entrepreneur, man, it can be very challenging. It can be hard to even know what to do. And even starting one from the ground up, man, that can even be tougher. And but when you've done that in obedience to what God is telling you to do, man, I am telling you from experience, it can be one of the hardest things you've done, but also one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life as well.
Yes, that's awesome, John. So we want to go ahead and share with everybody what the first step is. And I know that you would probably say that this is the most important tip that you could give anybody. So what is it?
Yeah, let me tell you right now, the number 1 tip is seek God. Only go into business if that's what you really believe God is telling you to do. We believe that we have to follow Psalms 24:1 that says the earth and everything in it, including its people, are God's. And so, man, one of the greatest lessons that I can teach you, that I've had to learn, and honestly, I learned it the hard way early on in my life, was that if we're doing this to make money or we're doing this for our own gain, it is going to be a long, hard road. But when we're doing it, knowing that God owns it, knowing that God has called us to do it, knowing that we've sought the Lord and this is what he's leading us to do, it can be one of the most rewarding things that we've ever done. And what I can tell you is, man, it's in those tough times that you've got to hold on to, that this is what God told me to do. And so for me, what we did was, man, I had prayed about it. I really believed God was telling me this is what I was supposed to do. Got my wife to pray with me on it. She felt like it was. Then the next thing, man, was we sought wise Spirit-led counsel that said, hey, will you pray with us on this? But it was a long journey before God actually even told us to do it. Almost 5 years before God said go.
Wow. So you felt like God was putting this on your heart 5 years before you actually started working on it.
Yeah, 5 years. So literally when the Lord laid that on our heart to start a home building business for 2 reasons: to reach people for Christ and to give to the kingdom. And then he said, hey, I want you to put a business plan together. I want you to put a budget together, and I want you to start praying over it and just wait till I say go. And it was just over 5 years before he actually said go. But that's where we had to just continue to seek the Lord, had to continue to refine our business plan, had to continue to just wait. But sometimes waiting isn't necessarily not doing anything. That's where we continue to work on our business plan. We continue to work on the budget, but we also continue to plan financially ourselves and continue to pray and go, God, what are you trying to teach me in this time of waiting? And I think sometimes we don't maximize those opportunities that God is giving us. Then we're not actually ready for it when he says go. And I think sometimes that's what makes it tough. And I'm not saying we had it all together and we did it perfect, but we just knew that that's the direction God was leading us. So that's the way we tried to grow and develop.
Yeah, Awesome. Well, John, I know that there's probably a lot of other Christian entrepreneurs out there that have a plan. They have something that they want to start, but they're maybe struggling with exactly how to know if it's God or them. And what advice would you give to them? How did you know that it was God speaking to you, and how did you know that it was time? Because like you said, you had heard that calling and that voice for 5 years before you knew it was time. But how did you know it was God, and then how did you know when it was time?
Well, I mean, first thing I love John chapter 10, because John chapter 10 says that my sheep will hear my voice and follow me. So that's a key component to our spiritual life anyway. So for me, I just break it down really simple, because this is what I was taught was, you know what? I just go to my prayer closet, which is a bedroom, whatever it is, shut the door, and I just pray and say, God, just speak to me. What are you speaking? Then I just take a notebook, or I have a prayer journal, and I just begin to write down, what do I feel like that the Lord is speaking to me? And I just write till I feel like he's finished talking. And that voice a lot of times is actually just thoughts that God is giving us. Just write that down. Then I look at it and go, does this line up with the Word of God, or is it contradictory to the Word of God? And I look at it and go, you know what? If it lines up with the Word of God, it probably could be God. There's a 50-50 chance. So if I really believe that, then I'm just going to say, God, help me know whether this is you or not. And so one of the ways that I do that too is that I go seek wise counsel, and I say, hey, man, I wrote this down. I felt like this is what the Lord is speaking to me. I think it lines up with the Word of God, but also want you to look at this, pray with me over it, and also let's see if it lines up with the Word of God. Because just this is what I believe in my life, is that if God is speaking to you and you're earnestly seeking the Lord, you're desiring to hear his voice, God's not going to penalize you or discipline you for taking a step of faith. And stepping out going, man, I really believe this is God. I've sought wise counsel. I believe it lines up with the Word of God. I believe God's going to bless that. Doesn't mean it always turns out exactly like we thought. And doesn't mean every business that I've ever started was a home run. It wasn't. There were times where, man, I really thought this was God, stepped out in faith, did it, and it failed. But you know what I learned from that? I'm still not sure it wasn't the Lord. I'm just not sure I wasn't supposed to learn that lesson at the same time. So there was still a lot to be learned from it. But we've got to step out in faith, trust God, and know that if it's him, he's going to guide us and direct us. He's going to protect us. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, but it means he'll be with us, and we can walk confidently in that.
Oh, I think that's super encouraging. Well, John, I really like that you shared too to write things down, because I think later when it is hard, you can go back and read what you wrote and just be reminded of what God said to you, which I think we always need to be reminded of. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We hope that this was encouraging to you. If you are trying to start up a new business, tip 1 from John Houston is seek God. We'll talk with you guys later. Thanks.
All right. Have a great day.